Welcome, friends. Welcome back to the kitchen. Welcome back to Sunday morning and the Old Cookbook Show. Today we're going to do a recipe out of this cookbook from 1947. My copy is coming apart at the seams. It is the cookbook, 5th edition, United Farm Women of Alberta. We've used this book in the past. This is a community cookbook. All of the recipes inside are attributed to a woman who is a member of United Farm Women of Alberta. It tells you which chapter they're from and what town they live in. A really good cross-section of the types of recipes that were being cooked in Alberta in this time period. Some great recipes. And today we're going to make something called Spanish macaroni. I'm going to start out, I've got a little bit of butter, and I'm going to put some butter in the bottom of this pan because I'm supposed to saute some onions. So I'll get those in as well as the butter melts and the pan heats up. You don't want to cook the onions too quickly. You don't want to burn them. Okay, so I figure at this point there's already somebody typing down in the comment section, I'm Spanish or from country X where Spanish is spoken. We don't make anything like this. This is not a Spanish recipe. This is a made-up recipe. Yes. Yes, you are probably 100% correct. Let's talk about Spanish for a moment. This recipe has tomatoes in it. Spanish was a code word for recipes or dishes that had tomatoes. Tomatoes are from the Americas. They're from this side of the planet. They're from the New World. The Spanish roll in and roll through Central and South America, and they grab all kinds of fruits and vegetables, plants, animals in what's called the Columbian Exchange. They take them back to Europe, and they take them to other places that they had colonized. One of these things is the tomato. Tomato gets back to Europe, and you probably all know the story. People didn't eat them right away because they thought they were poisonous. And depending on geographically where you were, the story was they were poisonous and they'd kill you. They would make you go crazy, turn you mad. That was another one that was used all the time. Or they would give you loose morals, and that often came from the pulpit. And I see that also with potatoes. I have a lot of Scottish cookbooks where there's an admonition at the beginning from the pulpit not to eat potatoes because they will give you loose morals. But when tomatoes do start showing up in cooking, they show up first in Spanish cooking. And so as tomatoes move across Europe, a lot of recipes were called Spanish something as a code word to indicate that they contained tomatoes. They were done in the Spanish style. And so we get a whole pile of recipes in the late 1700s and into the 1800s where this use of Spanish explodes, and then it wanes off. And over time, it slowly dies out, and the dishes are called something else, or they're forgotten completely. And at this point, there are very few dishes that we would, on a regular basis here in North America, come across that are called Spanish. Spanish rice, tomatoes in rice. There are probably still a few others, so let me know down in the comments section. So I'm going to keep these onions going, not too hot. They're probably going to take the longest to cook out of the other components. And I'd like to get them to, a pretty nice amber brown color. Meanwhile, I've got a pot of salted water that's coming up to a boil. We're going to cook some macaroni in that. And then in this pot, we're going to do something that I'm not too sure about, but we're going to give it a go. We're going to boil some ground beef. So I'm supposed to boil ground beef in a cup of salted water. So put some salt in there, and we'll bring that up to a boil. And we'll get the ground beef in. There we go. And so I've had casserole dishes with this same, mix of components. Casserole dish, buttered, ready to go. But I've never had them prepared this way. Let me know if this is something that you've come across or this is something that your family makes. Definitely not something I have come across before. I'm going to like all of the components, but there's really only salt and pepper in this. And even then, the pepper is optional. It says pepper may be sprinkled on if desired. Let's get the pasta in. It says a half pound, so half of this bag, and we'll just be roughly measuring. No need to get out a scale for that. Call that half a pound. Boiling the beef isn't that odd. Today, yes, 100% today, very odd. Today, everything, we would go to great pains to brown it and get a good Maillard reaction and build that browning flavor. That's what everybody wants today, 2026. In an earlier time period, browning meat just wasn't that big of a deal. I mean, a lot of the recipes don't call for browning meat. A lot of recipes call for boiling the meat before you put it into another preparation. So this kind of tracks with an earlier type of recipe. I don't know how it's going to play today, though. And so it does call for tomatoes. It calls for half a can of tomatoes. And I'm assuming, based on time period, that they would be calling for this size of can, a 2-pound can. They only want half a can, so they want a 1-pound can. So I'm going to be using a 1-pound can of tomatoes because I don't want to cut this can in half and freeze part. Okay, the beef is cooked and the onions are looking really good. Starting to get that deep brown color. The macaroni is where I'm going to sort of diverge from this recipe. I'm going to call those onions done. I'm going to turn them off. The recipe calls for, 20 minutes of cooking? 20 minutes of cooking. You put it in here with the other ingredients and you stick it in the oven for 2 hours. The pasta is going to be cooked. The pasta is going to be cooked. This packet of pasta says to cook for 8 to 10 minutes. I'm not even going to go that far because, you know what? 2 hours in the oven with tomatoes and the water that the beef was cooked in also, I don't want it to get mushy. Now the recipe also tells me to rinse in cold water. And that's something that's kind of gone by the wayside. I mean, it had its moment. Growing up in like the 70s and 80s, that was the thing. You always ran your pasta, or at least here anyway, where I live, all of the directions were to rinse it in cold water before you moved on to the next thing. I can't get down with that. I think we're going to get, the full experience, but I want it to be kind of edible. Okay, so there's the pasta. We'll open the tomatoes, and these are cherry tomatoes. Let's see. This is a beater knife. A lot of people they said they use kitchen shears to cut them up. I'm just going to run my beater knife through there. Smash them up a little bit. Okay, so we'll even that out. I'm supposed to pour the tomatoes over top. Get good tomato coverage. Okay, I'm going to hit this with some pepper because I do want some pepper in here. And then we're supposed to put the onions over top. So we're dealing with a layered dish here. Which brings us to the next problem. So now I'm supposed to put, the direction was let the meat boil 10 minutes in a cup of salted water and add to the baking dish as a top layer. I take that to mean that I'm adding the liquid as well because there's, still probably 3/4 of a cup of liquid in here. And I'm going to say I should add the liquid because it's, 2 hours in the oven and it doesn't want me to let it dry out. So that water would certainly be helpful to keep it from drying out. In with the water as well. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. The pasta will soak that up. 2 hours in a moderate oven will dry that out. Screaming for some cheese though, isn't it? Okay, into the oven.
Hey,
Jules.
Glenn. Hey, friends. What have we got today, Glenn?
I give you Spanish macaroni.
Okay. I don't even know what to say to that. Spanish macaroni.
Yeah.
It's got tomatoes. Okay. Got it.
Cortez.
Spanish. Yeah.
Cortez, he was a very bad man. He took tomatoes to Spain. Spain was the first European nation to really embrace the tomato, although it took them a while too.
That's funny language trends, eh?
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, I'm intrigued by this over here.
Don't look at that.
Okay.
That's for another day.
Okay.
You should come back for that one though, because it's going to be weird. So,
It's tomatoes and macaroni.
yeah.
Yeah. Got it.
Tomatoes, macaroni, ground beef.
Always very comforting. Something's done.
Something's done. Wait a sec. Completely devoid of spice. It could use some spices. And
More onion.
yeah, I put some pepper in it because it said pepper maybe if you want some pepper.
You said yes, I do.
Yeah, I do. But I mean, it needs more to meet today's standard of what people would expect. It needs more. And I think I would cook it most of the time with a cover on it because the ground beef on the top got a little crispy.
Got a little crispy.
Yeah.
What is the era of this?
This is 1940s.
Okay. So it's surprising, actually, that there isn't salt and stuff in it. But whatever.
What is the date? Let's go back. No. Yeah, 1946.
Have you tried that pie crust recipe?
No, I haven't.
I mean, it's taped right to the front. That tells me it's good.
Oh. You know what?
Is that pretty much your recipe?
That's the recipe from the Tenderflake package.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that's a good.
It's a
That's a good recipe.
Great recipe. That's the recipe from the Tenderflake. So this was compiled in 1928, and this was the 5th revised edition from 1946. Yeah. It's macaroni, tomatoes, and ground beef. Add some spices. Maybe a little cheese. And it's pretty much what everybody would put on their table. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon. Thank you everyone for making it to the end of the video and for hanging on to watch this next bit. As in past years, in 2026, I will again be raising money for Hope Air. Hope Air is a charity here in Canada that connects people in need of medical care or medical treatments with transportation to get from where they live to where the treatment is available. In Canada, healthcare is universal. Healthcare is freely given to anyone who steps up and says, I need treatment or I need care. The problem exists in the way, the sheer size of Canada's geography and the way our population is distributed. There are some people who live in areas that are underserved by healthcare. And they need to travel to the larger centers, be it Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, Toronto, Winnipeg, Montreal, Halifax, or St. John's. There are people who live in Canada's north or in more remote areas where getting to one of those centers to get treatment, be it cancer treatment or ongoing operations for some other health concern, getting to those centers is incredibly difficult, incredibly stressful, especially if it's a child that needs this health care. There are places in Canada where you could be driving 10 or 12 hours to access the treatments that you need. There are places in Canada where there is no road access. You may live in a town that is fly-in only. So what Hope Air does is utilize private pilots like myself who volunteer their time to fly to some of these locations, pick up people, and bring them to the treatment that they need. Or at least bring them to a larger center where they can get on a commercial flight, again, provided by Hope Air, to the city where the treatment is available. And for parents who are bringing their children for this type of healthcare, Hope Air also has partnerships with hotels where they can provide hotel stays for the parents during this, stressful time. For those of us that live in the big cities in Canada, this is something that we don't really think about. But there was a time where Julie and I lived in Northern Ontario, and we lived in towns and villages where, it was 3 hours just to drive to get to a grocery store, let alone drive somewhere where complex medical care could be given. And we were very cognizant of that when we lived there. I'm in the incredibly fortunate position that I can make a change, that you can help make a change. Last year, my viewers, you, donated $40,000 to Hope Air. That's an incredible amount of money. That really changed lives. That helped a lot of people. And I'm so thankful to you that you would open up and do that. It's absolutely incredible. And so for 2026, I'm hoping that we can do that again. In August of 2026, I will again be participating in Give Hope Wings, which is where a bunch of pilots like myself, we go out and we fly around and we raise awareness and we raise money and we sort of put a spotlight on the fact that this charity exists and this need exists and this gap needs to be filled. And so this summer we're going to the East Coast. Some of the highlights are Halifax, St. John's, Newfoundland, Goose Bay, Labrador. Then we're on to Rimouski and Trois-Rivières and ending up again in Sudbury. So I hope you'll come along with me over on the Flying Channel on that trip. Julie and I will be making it this year, and hopefully you will enjoy coming along with us. And if you can donate money to Hope Air, I thank you very much. I also understand that if you don't live in Canada, you may not feel a connection to this. I would hope that you you could find something in your community that you could help out with. I think that we really need to be a community of people that help each other. That's the only way through this, is to help each other and to give of our time to those that need it. So I thank you very much. So I will put all the links for Hope Air and everything they do in the description box below. Please check them out. And I thank you in advance for however you can help.